1970s की अगर आप फिल्म्स देखें तो वर्किंग क्लास was celebrated, मजदूर, किसान, ये वो. Then 2000 onwards you see a shift. NRI पे focus है. So can you walk us through the viewers through this के आपके ख्याल में how has on the storyline itself, where has Bollywood progressed? How?
That's that's a uh, that's a really good academic, solid question, Aisha ji. Well, I think that see, I like to always, or in my limited understanding, I feel कि जो फिल्में होती है ना कहीं पे भी पूरी दुनिया में वो आपके पॉपुलर डिस्कोर्स और पॉपुलर इमेजिनेशन को मिरर करती हैं एक तरीके से.
ठीक.
70s का जो दौर था, it was still the Nehruvian phase in India, where we were very much, as a society, we believed in socialist ideals, or in a loose understanding of socialism. So that kind of is reflected, and class was like, was like a big issue. Then if you look at 70s, it's also where a lot of the working class movements are going on. The trade unions are really
Right.
strong. um, and Indira Gandhi herself, who was in power at that time, was always, on a this sort of roti kapda makan kind of platform is what she came
Right.
on. So, very much working class issues were central to the imagination of Indian people, and you see that reflected in films, in the whole rich poor, like as you said, a lot
Right.
of the films were about class conflict, were about rich and poor. Rich boy marries poor girl, poor boy marries rich girl, falls in love
Hmm.
with rich,
Hmm.
this kind of thing. Again, always, if you look at it, the villain in those times were the smugglers, because
Right.
India had very strict rules about foreign investment and about import export, and so smuggler was the big figure at that time in the imagination. So there was always that thing ki Ajit used to play that character, and ki Mona darling Sona Varsova jetty Varsova pe aa gaya hai, or whatever, that kind of those lines. Or the big businessman, if you look at Amitabh Bachchan's films, and the whole angry young
Right.
man, who is the villain? The villain is the rich corrupt businessman, because again at that point, that whole idea of corruption of the big money, of the rich
Hmm.
people, was a something very much in our imagination, and the poor person was always seen as being an honest, laboring, hardworking person.
Right.
uh, with the 90s and the liberalization of India, when the Indian markets opened and India became more embracing towards capitalism, and capital became freer in India, consumerism kind of full fledgedly became sort of the culture of the Indian
Right.
people and masses. You begin to see that reflected in Hindi films. So when the Indian audience became aspirational towards capitalist goods and consumer goods, and that became accessible to them, a big revolution happens in India. One with liberalization in the early 90s, but with 2000 with telecom, and with the
Hmm.
availability of cell phone, and the cell phone becoming cheaper and more accessible to people. So information becomes easier. Indians start, and in general, the because of more foreign investment in
ठीक.
India, there was a huge spurt of economic growth. So people could go,
Sure.
had spending money, they could go out. You see all of that reflected in your films. Suddenly, everyone's wearing designer clothes. Suddenly,
Hmm.
the stories are about Indian people going abroad. Suddenly, and because the NRI becomes so much the focus of the Indian imagination, because now young people are, they were always going out, but like now it's a big thing that going out to study, going out to get jobs, going abroad. And because the NRI market opens up for Hindi films. So suddenly, in the late 90s and 2000s, Indian films started showing in box offices in the US, UK, Canada, actually releasing on the same day as they were releasing here,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
Suddenly, the Indian producer also realized that there's a huge market of the Hindi audience. And when I say the Hindi audience, what I'm actually saying is the Hindi, Urdu, Hindustani audience. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
actually, पाकिस्तानी को भी हिंदी समझ में आती है, मतलब जिस तरीके की
बिल्कुल.
बोलचाल
बिल्कुल.
हम बोलते हैं, या जिसमें उर्दू भी है, हिंदुस्तानी भी है. So actually, if you look at it, a Bangladeshi, an Indian, a Nepali, a Pakistani, an Afghan, somebody living in the UAE, in the Middle East, in Dubai, and all the diaspora communities of UK, Canada, USA, of which are South Asian, can actually follow Hindi films.
Yeah, of
So
course you do.
suddenly there's a huge market. So the Indian producer became very aware of that. And I think that Yashraj and Karan Johar were the two, so Yashraj and Dharma were the two production houses that picked up on that, because DDLJ, one of the, and this is something I think a lot of people don't realize, DDLJ made such a huge amount of money in the overseas market. Nobody
Hmm,
expected
hmm.
that. Nobody saw that coming. So once that happened in 95, then producers realized that, oh, there's a huge market here. So let's start involving them also. I'm guessing like this
See,
is the thought. And so you suddenly see this spate of NRI films. If you look at, and a lot of them had Shah Rukh in them, a lot of them was done by Yashraj Dharma. So whether you look at Kal Ho Na Ho, you look at Salam Namaste, you look at, Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna. I mean, so many of them. So there's like this whole spate of films that are set and shot entirely abroad. And they're working abroad, they're working in India. So that was very interesting. Then there is the, again, I would, for me, the next chapter is 2011 onwards, and the release of Tanu Eds Manu, actually, which is coincidentally a film that
right.
I'm also in,
Yeah,
which is a film, well, that one, and I would say Gangs of Wasepur.
right.
So uh, Anurag's big coming of, coming to the big acceptance in commercial space was with Gangs of Wasepur, because that's his big
Hmm,
first commercial success, and Tanu Eds Manu, which is also a huge hit, which are both the coming back of the small town to the Hindi filmscape.
right.
And
Right.
suddenly you see again then films being made about small towns. So you have Bareli Ki Barfi, you have you have Nil Bate Sanata, you have Bareli Ki Barfi, you have Ishq Zade, you have like a whole spate of then films that are all about the small town and set in small town. That's because suddenly, in from the 2000s onwards and 2005 especially onwards, you all the writers and all, like, the film industry got corporatized. It also became more accessible for outsiders. So you had so many writer directors who were not from Bombay. They were not born in Bombay. They were all people coming from small towns with Bollywood dreams, and they were telling the stories they know of the world they know. So I think that all of that, I always say films are fascinating because they reflect the people who make them and the
Hmm,
audiences that
hmm.
make them. It's really like an interesting mirror that kind of interacts in myriad ways. So I
But
think
but
that,
but but tell me, let me cut you here. What about people who act? ना कि आप पे आते हैं, आप ये बताएं कि आपके लिए स्टोरी की चॉइस जो है, how do you pick your script?
so I say this, that, I think people, uh, I always start by saying that the thing with our choice is that our choice is from a limited pool. I can only, as an actor, choose from what is being offered to me, right?
ठीक,
I can't naturally go and choose what is being offered to Alia Bhatt or Deepika Padukone or, some other actress. I can make the wisest choice from what is offered to me. So my
right.
personal, and this is of course my own trajectory,